this is G.I. Josh, and I'm starting a new channel. I've had a couple that have been on here before. One was Action of History, and the one before that I think it was Bolt Gun Metal, something like that. It had to do with Warhammer. So what we're going to do with this series is I'm going to look at full collections of toys, miniatures, airsoft, Warhammer, whatever it is that's being collected, and give you a brief overview of whether or not it's worth it to invest your money fully into that series. So, I'm going to start with Star Wars Micro Galaxy Squadron. And the reason I'm going to start with that is because I just did this display, I think a day ago, and I have some opinions on it. I've been building this for probably 2 months or so. I built them all, or like bought them all in the first month of being into it, and I just went crazy and bought like 20 ships. And I bet you want to know, is it worth collecting these? Maybe it's worth it to you to get one or two. Maybe you just want the AT-AT or AT-AT, depending on what time you come from. Maybe you just want Boba Fett's ship or the Millennium Falcon that's over here. I'm going to let you know not really the details of individual ships, but as a whole, are they worthwhile to spend your money on, that you work hard for, that you earn? Should you build a collection? That is what the whole series is going to be about. I have a lot of different collections, so there's going to be quite a few different videos with a lot of varying topics. So we're going to start with this. I have about 20 ships here, and about 50 of the miniatures, plus I added some from older series that we'll talk about. So let's talk about what this is. It's a fairly new concept, or the concept's existed for a while. It's a fairly new IP or toy line, probably only, between 4 and 5 years old or even less. What's interesting about it is it does make you remember or have nostalgia for not only Star Wars, but previous projects that were like this in the past. So that's something it's got going for it. It is more about the vehicles than the minifigures that come with it. And that should really be kept in mind, because you'll realize that as you listen to what I have to say. Pros about this, good things about this series, why you would want it, they are light enough to hang from the ceiling. In fact, I had them hanging from the ceiling with fishing line, and it worked really well. In fact, it made it so I could fly or have any of these ships up in the air, including the Millennium Falcon that's over about a pound. Why are they not hanging from the ceiling now? I actually took them down to play with my son with, and that leads to another pro. They are durable and fun enough that you and your children can enjoy these together, which is great. They don't really have many small parts other than the pilots and characters that are within, so they're fairly easy to keep track of as well. Some of the benefits is also the detail on these things is really, really great, and I guess I should just grab one of these, and I'm trying to look at one where I wouldn't knock over everything else that I've set up, but I think the Millennium Falcon would be the best option. And let's see if you can see this. This is what it looks like. I don't have the main gun. It's actually downstairs. It came off while I was transporting it. But it also has light up features, which, is incredibly cool. So it does all that. And the only ones with electronic features so far that I've owned would be the Millennium Falcon and the AT-AT Walker. But just look at the detail. It's really cool. It pops open, and you can put the 4 characters inside. I will tell you, it is kind of difficult to put the characters inside. It feels like you're going to break them, but I haven't had that problem yet. It also cracks open, and I wish it would stop doing that. I think I keep pressing the button. It cracks open, and then you can see the inside of the ship. I don't know what I'm doing wrong that's keeping it running. I've never gotten it to do that before. But of course it's doing it while on camera. So this is... Okay, that should do it. The inside you can actually put the little characters in, which does make it somewhat of a playset. And if you look... let's see if I can shine the light a little better. If you look, you can actually see the inside of the ship. There's the little chess table. You can put the characters around that. You can even put them inside this turret hole. If I could, I don't know how to get it out, not on camera. But I assure you, you can open this up and put characters inside the turret. So they're very elaborate. It's a very decent, scale model, and it's also a pretty cool toy too. And you just snap that back together, and suddenly you have your ship back, and you can fly it back over here. And that's what, kind of the best of the best looks like, is, you get things like the Millennium Falcon. You also get characters, let's see if I can, that are this tiny. Let's see, that's a Han Solo. And you can see that is just puny. So that you get these little tiny characters, and you can put them inside, and they are, I will show that they are, I'm not going to really go through posability usually, but they do move their arms, and they can sit. So I'll have him sit back down instead of trying to stand him up. So that's what they look like. You can get them in different sizes. The Millennium Falcon would be one of the biggest. Well, this is one of the smallest. This would be a droid fighter, and you can see how small that is. And it too, opens up, and you can actually put the, if you see the inside, you can actually put the droid inside of there. So that's really cool. So a lot of them have movable parts. A lot of them have, in fact, I haven't had any that don't come with a pilot. So they almost always come with at least one pilot. Some come with, a droid and the pilot. They're pretty damn cool. This is a cool little, this is just what a pilot for a speeder or a X-Wing looks like. And so these little characters are really fun. They're basically just tiny action figures. They work well if you're doing a diorama and you have, a 1/12 scale figure that's holding a action figure. You can use these as tiny action figures for your action figures, which is pretty meta. So the benefits, they're really cool. I don't know if there's a reason to do the stuff I did. If you look over here, I can't move the camera too much without it falling. There's actually two of the clone drop ships, the ones they use to drop troops like a helicopter would. I can't remember the name at this time. Those are really well done. They are, but I bought two in two different paint jobs simply to get more clones. And one of the things you'll come to realize is this is the big no-no for me. This is where I don't like something about it enough that I wouldn't want to buy more, which, is saying something for something I've spent this much money on so far. All of the figures are distinctly in non-combat poses, without lightsabers, without blasters in hand. So in other words, they are just pilots for these vehicles, and this line is really more about the ships, and the figures are really just there to show scale. They are not meant for having big wars with. Having said that, I have 2 out of 50 models that were not that case. This is Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber, and I just wish more of them were like this. It's really a disappointing thing that you can't really play with the figurines as battle characters or anything like that, because frankly they're just pilots. So this is another example that's really rare, but this is a stormtrooper with a blaster in hand, which frankly he's the only one out of several. I can even show you. These are all different stormtroopers. These are all different stormtroopers, but only one has a blaster out of all of them. And that includes all of the clones that I have, which is about 6 or 7. None of them have a blaster in hand. So as far as using these as miniature action figures for dioramas, shootout scenes, it's just not there. They're better used as scale models next to your ships to show how big the ships are. Which, I don't know about you, that's frankly kind of disappointing that the minifigures are not being made front and center. There's also no way to buy sets of minifigures. The only way to get the minifigures is by buying ships, and so you end up with a ton of these little minifigures and stuff, and all they're really supposed to do is sit inside the ship, which if you're displaying it from, a fishing line hanging from the ceiling, you're not going to see it. If you're displaying them inside the ship, you still won't really see them too well. So I decided to have them, I think you can kind of see it. If you look, these tiny little dots down here are actually Jango Fett and Boba Fett hanging out in front of a couple of Slave Ones. I have Jango Fett's painted version and then Boba Fett's. And so the only way to get characters with guns and stuff I found was to look at an older series that existed before. This is from like the 90s. And you could get characters who are in single poses with these, but they're actually out of scale. I'll show you. They're out of scale. They're about half the height, or at least a foot shorter in their scale to the newer figures. So you cannot really get in-scale warfare or battle sequences done easily. I bought a ton of these little stormtroopers that are monopose. And they're really cool, but they're still very short compared to the others, and so it's still very difficult to do battle sequences or ground combat scenes. They're simply just not backing that as you expect. There's no play sets. There's just vehicles with little pilots, and that's all this line really is. If that's what you want, that's great. But as someone who's collected Black Series, 3.75 scale, 1/6 scale, SH figure arts, Legos, all these different Star Wars options, it's a little disappointing to have only one portion of it covered. And it actually reminds me a lot of the tabletop game Star Wars X-Wing that was only about space combat. And it would have been ridiculous for them to make an AT-AT for that game. I feel the same way about this. This is all about the space exploration, the space battles, and very much so, the minifigs are like a little bonus thing, even if they're my favorite part. I would never have gotten into this line without minifigs being included, because there's something really satisfying about little tiny people. It's why I love miniature wargaming. So, do I recommend this? Only if you are obsessed with the star battles, which I hate to say I am not. So this may not have been the best choice for me, and it also will not satisfy most people's Star Wars itch. This can't be your only Star Wars thing. And I'll actually show, because he's sitting right here. That's my knee, sorry. This is I custom painted this Black Series Jabba the Hutt, and it's my favorite painting I've ever done, because it really is, to me, the best looking Jabba the Hutt I've ever seen. Which, not to toot my own horn, but it is very good. He does look good, and because of that, this series will never satisfy your need for characters like Jabba the Hutt, or anything very particular that you love about Star Wars. You'd still need an action figure line or a miniature war game or something like that to also cover the ground battles and characters, as they are in the movies. So. Also, these little figures, as detailed as they are, and they are decently detailed, look at the amount of detail you see on this. A miniature of Jabba the Hutt is going to be like this big, and you're not going to get the same amount of detail and understand the complexity of the design. So, I would say a big problem with it is it just doesn't really work as your only Star Wars collection. And so I'm finding myself interested in starting something else. It hasn't come around. I've done Black Series twice, where I've built up a 50-figure collection, and then I end up selling it anyway. So I'm looking for something a little different than that. The 3 3/4, I don't really go for that scale right away. It's not my favorite. I prefer a 6-inch figure. I would do SH figure arts, but there's like 5 characters. There's really not a big enough line. So I'm just waiting for something that meets my needs. So, I would say jump on this, get a big collection of this, if you are really interested in the small scale of the characters. You're not really looking for representation of Boba Fett and Jango Fett. You already have it. Or if you're really just into the ships, this is brilliant. If you're really only into the vehicles of Star Wars, this is a really good way to go. But once again, I haven't seen a lot of the ground vehicles that we enjoy. Some of the clone ones, the big tanks and stuff, I haven't really seen it. They did do the droid tank and the little ATST chicken walker. So those are options that you can have. So overall, what is my recommendation here? Absolutely go for it, based on the idea that it's just vehicles, the minifigures are a bonus, and it's never going to cover play sets and boxes of characters. They've even kind of distinctly said they're not going to do that. So if they do, it'd be a shock. These are very cool and very special, but at the same time, they do not scratch my Star Wars itch. Even though I have 50 characters here, I feel like that one Jabba the Hutt tells me more about the Star Wars galaxy than any one of those small figures or all of them combined. So that's what I have to say about this line. I'm now going to switch to a free-floating cam, and I'm going to show all the different stuff real quick, and then we'll end the video. So 1 second. Alright, a couple of them are laying down from the review, but that is the scale of the walker. These are from another company from back in the 90s or early 2000s. That's what the snow speeder looks like. It does fit perfectly under the foot. There's what the characters look like. You can see a few more of them sitting around back there. There's Luke in the back with his lightsaber. Here's the Razor Crest, and I think this is a beautiful figure. There's some dust there that I'm afraid to blow on because it'll probably knock over the characters. You can see how nicely scaled they are. Look how tiny Baby Yoda is. I mean, that thing is like the size of a fingernail. It is that like with the actual character is even smaller than that. He's like the size of a pen tip. He's really small, but it's very cool. Here is the Millennium Falcon with its characters. I didn't put Han Solo back to standing, but you can still see how they look with the ship. It looks quite nice, and it's not actually on its landing gear. It's just sitting down, so it will actually sit higher than that. Right below that are the two Slave Ones. You can see Jango Fett and how big he is compared to the ship, which shows you how big the dang ships are. They are really good sized. There's Boba Fett, and there's Fennec, who's supposed to be leaning on the ship, but she fell. That's another huge flaw. If you're trying to stand these guys like figures, they do not stand well. That's one bump, and all of them are going to fall over on this display. So here's the Emperor and his royal guards and his shuttlecraft. You can see the thing looks pretty cool. The wings fold down. It opens up. It's very cool. There's some kind of carrier ship. I've never actually seen it other than, I think it was in one of the shows. Here's some of those newer or older stormtroopers that were added to it to kind of add some infantry flavor. Down here we have our TIE fighters. That's Darth Vader, and you can just see how boring of a Darth Vader that is. It just doesn't pop at all compared to the really exciting costume. There's a pilot back there. Over here is the Jedi with their ships from the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, and their two droids, and then you have the two battle droids with their ships as well. Then we'll go over here. Here is the clone docking bay, and there's these two separate ships. You can see them. The one has a shark face kind of thing on the front, and the other has, man, I'm drawing blanks on names, but the little guy from Return of the Jedi, the little asshole who keeps laughing at everybody. I wish I could remember his name now. But here's the clones. You can see not one of them is armed, but they sure do look cool there. And then we're going to drop down here. And here's a pair of X-Wings. There's Poe's. And I actually put his R2 up with the Millennium Falcon display. I thought that would look better. And then there's Luke with R2 loaded in the back, who you can remove. So that is them. It's really, this is like $250 to $300, which is a lot, but you do get a decent enough collection out of it. So it'll be up to you to decide. I'm going to scoot this chair back so you can kind of take a look at it. That's what it looks like. I'm in a really dusty attic that I'm working on, but I put these guys up first because I have the wrong priorities. But this was the first collection overview, and there's going to be a lot more to come. So if you like this, subscribe. If you don't, move on. I appreciate your time, though. All right, this was G.I. Joshua. Thank you for your time.